Welcome to the We Are All God podcast, where the inner journey is simplified. I'm Erin Werley.
And I'm Philip Werley.
And you are more powerful than you've ever imagined. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So let's talk about the confusion that is everywhere in the spiritual community around, should I be in the now moment? Should I be creating my future? What in the world should I be doing? And I mean, I get it because I've been confused about these things as well. So I got an email recently that was in response to an email I sent out. And I'm going to read my email first, and then we'll get into the response. So my email says, lots of spiritual teachers talk about being in the moment, focusing on the now and meditating more, and say that the more that you do this, the happier you'll be. And yes, this is a powerful daily practice. But for me, only focusing on those things always ended up leaving me feel empty because I felt like I was trying to make myself feel better about a life I didn't love. It felt like settling and trying to be happy while I settled. Have you experienced something similar? I found all my peace and happiness by deciding to create new things. Things that my soul wants me to bring into the world. All those spiritual teachers who teach just being in the moment are actually creating stuff. They're not just being in the moment like they teach. Whether they're writing books or making classes or YouTube videos, they're creating. Find what you're here to create, get started, and the happiness will come. Without this understanding, even energy work is just helping you feel better about settling for a life that doesn't light you up. What do you really want to do? Energy work on others, guide others, write a book, something else? Today is the perfect day to take out a notebook and start jotting down ideas. When you're creating your future, there's nothing to fear and the universe will support you. So, the response that we got to this was empty, sunyata is the goal. There is nothing wrong with emptiness. It is a space to be explored. Now, to be clear, I think emptiness, that void space, is incredibly important. And I would never suggest to someone they always be in the creative mode. I think that's just as lost as somebody who is only in the void space. I believe that each of us has our own unique balance of the two spaces that we're here to bring forward. And the correct balance of these two spaces within us will change in different seasons of our life. So sometimes we might be called to bring forward more of being in the now and less of being in the creative. And at other times we might be called to bring forward much more of being creative and not a lot in the now. And can we recognize where we're guided within around this and move into that and be okay with it? Can we be okay with being led within instead of being led by what a teacher thousands of years ago said? That's the real question. Are you your own answer, or is someone else your own answer? What do you think?
Well, at some point, yeah, I mean, it's important to learn from other people, but at some point you have to step back and look within and ask yourself, is this the right guidance for me? And does this jive with me? You might take some things from a teacher and leave other things aside, and you have to learn to listen to yourself. The ultimate truth, the ultimate thing you have to learn in life is to listen to yourself, ultimately over other people. But there might be people that help guide you towards that, As far as the being in the moment all the time, it's kind of like a cop out, like an escape, like I'm escaping from reality. And there's so many different ways people try to escape from reality. Some people use drugs, they smoke pot because they can't handle reality. So it's a way to escape. What's other ways people do that?
Well, it's, alcohol is the same thing. There's certainly, I was there with both of those things, when I was younger, because I didn't know how to live.
Yeah.
Right? Like we weren't taught how to live. We were just taught how to suppress the living that wanted to come through us. Yeah. And this is truly another form of that. Now, a huge part of our inner journey is learning to sit with the emptiness within, learning to sit with that void space and be okay with it. And like I said in my email, it is a powerful daily practice and is necessary. It is really necessary. But the idea that we appeared here, humanity, here we are on planet Earth, physical world, and we're just here to find the void space is so ridiculous that I don't even know how to address it. But I understand there's a lot of people out there saying that. And it's a cop-out, like you said. It's a way someone can teach others to sort of deal with the pain of their lives without actually really dealing with it. It's like, well, more isn't really possible, so just make do with what you have. And this keeps people like so lost and so confused. And part of the confusion comes from the fact that we are both God's source embodied at the same time that we're a soul embodied. And I talk about this so much because once you understand it, everything starts to make sense. And all of the contradictory teachings out there start to make sense. And God source within you, that part of you, doesn't need anything. That's the part of you that is fulfilled and lit up by being in the now moment, by just being, by sitting with nothingness, and that is perfect. But we also all have an individual blueprint, a soul mission, a life path that our soul is here to bring forward, both for ourselves, but for the human collective, for the earth, to create more expansion in the universe. And this is something that we're here to create, or potentially many things that we're here to create. It's usually not one thing. It's usually a series of things. One thing sort of like acts as a domino and leads into the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And through that, we keep expanding. We assist the world in expanding. It's really beautiful. And it's true that to be this creator that we're here to be, that our soul is here to be, we need to be able to spend time every day with our God self, with the void. Yes, we do, because otherwise we're going to be depleted of energy if we're just creating all the time and we're not filling back up with that void space. That void space of just sitting in peace with nothing needed, nothing necessary, allows you to connect deeply with who you really are. It fills you up with energy and light and allows you then to go out and do more creative activities, whatever you're here to do or create. So without holding that void space on a daily basis, you are going to get burned out. And it's going to be too much for you. And the creation could lead to burnout, even if it really is your soul's path. And so they go together. They go together. They go together. And you see so many people out there living very, very creatively. They just create nonstop. But these are often people that it's very much in that hustle, go, 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 do energy, where they don't take the time to slow down every day and find a peaceful space within. And they tend to be very unhappy as well, because they aren't acknowledging that part of them that is God's source that needs to connect with all that is on a regular basis. And so we need to find a balance. We need to understand these two dual parts of us exist, and they both need our energy, attention, and love.
It reminds me of the samurais. They had a practice, like a meditative practice, like a spiritual practice to them. And I can't remember what it's called. It's like Budo or something. But they would meditate and be at peace in the moment. And they practice this. But it wasn't a purpose in and of itself. They did this to be better warriors, because they knew if they had this peace, this in the moment, this stillness within them when they went to battle, they would defeat their opponent. They knew this is what it was all about, so they utilized it. It was a tool to become something, to do something in the world. And that's how they became these great warriors, so like meditation and this cultivating the stillness and being in the moment, all this stuff is very valuable skills to have. And they're very valuable tools, but they're tools. You're supposed to apply them in this world to do something. They may be tools that you really need to go out and do what you need to do to become the person you need to become. But if you get stuck in it thinking that this is it, in and of itself, you're missing the point, because the point is you use the tool. The hammer isn't the point of the hammer. Isn't the hammer? It's what you can do with it. So it's a tools that you can use to go out and live your life and achieve what you're here to achieve, whatever you want to go, whatever life you want to create, what do you want to do for the world, But people get stuck on it thinking this is in and of itself. It's all about this meditation and being in the moment, and they just focus on that, and everything else they just push away. And they block it out, and they when they get this guidance to go do something, they're like, well, I got to push that away because I'm just supposed to be in the moment, and it's not just about, it's a tool. It's a skill you're supposed to use. It's an important skill to learn and cultivate. It's a very powerful skill, but ask yourself, how am I supposed to use this?
I love how you described it as a tool, because that's exactly what it is. And I think that's so, so powerful. And not only is it a tool, it's also an understanding, right? So it's an understanding of who you really are and why you are capable of creating whatever crazy idea has popped into your head, right? So it's a tool that when I am in this state of the void or the emptiness or the meditation or whatever it is for you, I am connected into all that is, and I feel how powerful I really am. And so I know, even as I go about the rest of my day and do whatever I feel guided to do, that even if I'm not feeling that connection in that moment, I am that. Mm-hmm. Right? So it's like this tool that allows you to remember who you really are. And it brings so much powerful, higher vibrational energy into your body. And like you said, I am sure with the samurais, that was such a good explanation. With the samurais, they destroyed anyone who was not doing a similar practice. Mm-hmm. I mean, there would be no contest. And it all comes down to energetic alignment, which is really what you were describing when you were calling this a tool, right? Because when we are out there in that energy of just do, as we have been programmed by the world we live in, by the matrix, by the schools, by the news, that the people who just do all the time, work really, really hard, work yourself to the bone, that's the way to succeed, that this is not actually energetically aligned, because if we're not taking that time to reconnect every day to who we really are, then we don't have the energy being built up in our system to go out and create the things that we're here to create with ease, which is why everyone gets burned out. They're trying to create, do constantly from a place of not replenishing their energy. And that is a losing proposition. And it's why you see so many very, very successful people in our world who are really, really miserable. They might be creating incredible things. They might be creating what their soul is here to create, but they're not doing it from a place of energetic alignment and giving themselves the balance that they need to give themselves.
I think it's easy to get lost in this world. If you don't, you can lose your focus and get lost. And it's important to come back and center yourself in your truth, who you are, So it's important practice to come back and like, remember, this is who I am. This is what I am. This is why I'm here. And because the world can pull us away and we can get lost in it, so it's important practice to have.
Oh yeah. I mean, I have periods all the time where I forget for a few days to connect within, and I start getting pulled by the world and I have to come back. And it's often like something will kind of shake me and be like, oh, and it might be uncomfortable or painful. It'll be like, Erin, remember, you need to connect within. And I'll be like, oh, that's right. I haven't connected within for a few days. That's why this is happening. Okay. Yeah.
This is a really predominant thing that's taught by a lot of spiritual teachers out there, to just be in the moment, and anything else is pointless, basically. And what they're telling people is that life is pointless, basically. It's like the whole point of spirituality is to escape the world and escape reality. And in order to escape you're running away from the world, you're running away from reality, and you're running away from your emotions and your suffering and everything, instead of learning how to deal with it properly. They're not teaching you the proper tools to deal with life. It's like a cop-out. It's like telling somebody, oh, well, just smoke pot. Oh, you're stressed out, just start drinking alcohol. It's kind of like that. It's like, oh, you're stressed out. You just need to, just get lost in the moment and stay in the moment forever. And that's why you're stressed out. Now, if you go out in the world and you don't come back to being centered, after a while, you start to get lost in the world, and that's why you get stressed out. So it is important to come back and learn this tool to center yourself and come back to your truth of who you are, and remind yourself, okay, this is who I am. This is the truth. This is the ultimate truth. Now we have to go out there in the world and do our battles, and fight our battles, and create what we're supposed to create. And it's important to come back and center yourself in the ultimate truth. But if you get stuck in that and that's all you do, you're missing the point of us being here. There's so many ways to cop out from reality and just escape the world. People use drugs, they use alcohol. Some people choose suicide. People just decide to leave, and that's not the right answer. You didn't come here just to leave, And when we do pass away, we get that, we get to escape. We go back to the truth eventually. Yeah.
And I think these are such good points, Phil. I think that most people that are very attracted to these being in the moment teachings, and like, this is not any sort of judgment on my part, because I've been there too, right? I've been there. It's very much because the world around them feels so rough and so harsh, and they don't see any way out of that roughness or harshness. So the only answer is that escape route, right? Okay. And people, when they're there, they tend to just have a really fear-based outlook on the world itself, really coming from that lack frequency, right? That this world is not a good place, or that Earth is like the toughest school in the world, or all these things, right? Or I got an email recently where somebody said they were afraid they were going to be stuck in a reincarnation loop here. And that's just, I know that idea is out there, that are we here as a punishment? And that unless we can figure out how to achieve that perfect void space or being in the moment space, we're going to come back and reincarnate here as punishment over and over and over again until we figure out how to achieve that void space. And I can say from my own experience of being in that fear-based place where I thought maybe escape was the only option, that I hadn't had in my life a lot of joyful experiences aside from my experiences with I am, right? I hadn't had a ton of them. Yes, I had you, but I wanted to escape with you, And in fact, the fact that I had you is why I didn't go and try to be fully I am, which is so interesting because I had experienced joy outside of escaping, essentially. And that was being with you. And I didn't want to stop experiencing that joy. But once you start opening to the possibility that life itself holds joyful experiences, all of a sudden, there's no longer a reason that you need to escape from it. But when it feels like life is just pummeling you from all directions, it can be very, very hard to see that. And I think it's so important that everybody understands that there is a path for you where you follow your inner guidance as you're guided. And when you're guided to rest and get quiet, you do so. And when you're guided to take action, you do so. And through this path, you are going to be led to a life here on earth that is absolutely incredible. I look at how our life has transformed in every way because we have been following our guidance. Like, would you say our life is just completely different?
Absolutely.
And yes, financially, in terms of money, it's completely different, but that's not the major. I would have thought 5 years ago, I would have thought that would have been the major thing. That's all that would have really mattered because then, there'd be so much less worry if we had more money. But I would say the major differences are in our personal relationships, are in our relationship, how much deeper our relationship has gotten, our relationship with our children, how our children are. I mean, everything in our life is completely different and better. And we have a really, really joyous life that I just feel so blessed every day. And it's not because I am forcing myself into the practice of gratitude of saying, okay, well, let me write down 10 things I'm grateful for today. And there's been times I've done that because that was a way for me to keep moving forward and I was guided to do it. But now I'm at a place where I don't have to do that, where I'm just simply grateful and in awe of the amazing life that we have created simply by following our inner guidance. And wow. And I think people don't really believe it's possible. And that's why they choose the now moment. And like I said in the email I wrote here, there is a place where being in the now moment creates settling for less than your soul came here to experience. So we can absolutely do some deep breathing practices, like you said, and ignore our emotions. There are times when breath work is a beautiful, expansive practice for us. But I would say 1000% that is when you are already relatively calm and in a good place. Go do some breath work. It's going to help you expand further. But when you are dealing with some heavy, thick, uncomfortable, or even painful emotions, breath work is the last thing that you want to do because it's opting out of feeling the emotion. You might think the emotion is there to torture you. I've felt that way many times. Why is this emotion here? I don't want to experience this. Go away. But all that does is store it in your body energetically because you don't know how to move it out. Deep breathing doesn't move the emotion out. It stuffs it down. When you are really, really angry, the best thing that you can do is go find a quiet space and a pillow and scream into the pillow while you repeat, I release. When you are really, really sad, the best thing you can do is go find a quiet place and cry. The best thing you can do when you're experiencing an emotion is allow it to move through you.
Release the emotion instead of like pushing it down and suffocating it. Push it down and bury it within as opposed to just letting it move through you.
Yeah.
Like the Spartans had a practice of this. After battles, they would sit and they would let the emotions move through them and release it. And they knew they needed to do this in order to stay healthy, to survive. After a battle, they would sit down and it was no taboo to cry or to shake. A lot of them, they would experience lots of shaking and crying. And this was normal. And all the soldiers would sit down and do this. And it was taboo. It was not taboo. You could not make fun of anybody. They would support each other in this and let the emotions of what they had just experienced, because it's a great battle, move through them. And they'd cry and they would shake and they let it out. And once it was done, and they would move on. But they knew they needed to do this in order to stay healthy, to stay alive, and continue being the warriors that they were. They didn't stuff it. They knew if they stuffed it down and didn't allow it to come out, it would kill them from inside.
And it would kill them by creating disease within their body.
Yeah.
Because that's what happens. That's where disease comes from. It comes from trapped emotions that we did not know how to safely discharge. And this is something that in February in my membership, the Ascension Portal, we went really, really deep into clearing out and exactly how to do that. These old trapped stored emotions from traumas that have happened in the past. Because when we were younger and even in past lives, we did not know how to handle the big emotions that were moving through us. And so we can learn how to do that now. And like you said, shaking is a huge one that allows all of that adrenaline that just pumped through your nervous system while you were experiencing that fight or flight reflex. And in battle, you would certainly experience that, but we experience it. Gosh, if you have a close call with having a car accident, you're going to experience that adrenaline, even if nobody gets hurt. There's no accident, but your heart's racing for the next few minutes, right? Or even it could be with a fight with a loved one. Adrenaline is constantly pumping through our system in our modern world. And if we don't know that we need to spend a little time every day quietly with ourselves and our body and just allow our body that space to shake it off. Animals in nature know this. Like a deer, if it's being hunted by a predator, it will run away very, very fast because it's got adrenaline pumping through its system. Once it reaches safety, it will shake as long as it needs to shake, full body chills, to allow all that adrenaline to essentially move out of its system so it's not stored as cortisol. Now, I figured this out a couple of years ago when I was just really exhausted all the time, and I self-diagnosed myself with adrenal fatigue because I realized that my adrenals were completely overwhelmed and overworked because there was so much cortisol in my system. They had to release so much to give me that fight or flight reflex. Anyway, I had to learn how to heal myself and move all of it out. And one of the big ways I've done it is what I said a minute ago. If I'm angry, I go and I scream into a pillow. If I'm sad, I cry. I let it out. We had that incident where we were getting ready to go to a birthday party, your sister's daughter, my niece, and I tripped and fell and I hurt my neck, and I had to make the decision to stay here while you took the kids. And that was a really hard decision because all I had to go on was my inner guidance. Everything else was telling me, oh, you should just go. It's not a big deal. But I stayed here and I lay on the floor and I let my body shake for like an hour. And all the trauma of hurting my neck, it dissolved. And, I say, if you can't do it right when the trauma happens, as soon as you get home, as soon as you're safe, go lay down, let your body feel it and let it move out, because our emotions are guidance. Our emotions are guidance. Our emotions are guidance. Our emotions are not bad or wrong, even the emotions that feel bad and wrong, And this idea of deep breathing to move the emotion out does not move out the emotion because it does not allow you to sit with it. That void space, that is the space where you sit with God, where you sit with all that is and you just allow whatever you're experiencing to be your experience without judging it, without saying this is bad or wrong, without saying I have to stop it, I have to fix it. You just allow it. And through this allowing, you crack open, you find this light, this true connection to what is real. And everything in your life transforms. All of the power that the matrix had over you, that all of these control systems had over you, it starts to dissolve and be not true. And through that, you rise up energetically and you start to live this life that feels incredible. You're not helpless. But if you feel that you are, you're not going to find yourself through assuming opting out is the path. Like, you're just not. It's more, can I sit with all of it and let it be okay? Can I be okay in the void? And not only can I be okay in the void, you know what's really badass? Can I be okay in life? Can I bring the void with me to life and be okay, alive? Can I live? Can I be human? There's nothing wrong with being human. That's another misconception that goes along with it, is that like humanity's not good. It's not good to be human.
They want to escape what they are. They want to escape humanity. Like, yeah, absolutely. There's that idea there that like all humans are evil and we have to escape our humanity and become like enlightened to be something beyond human instead of, you know,
and that's that idea of the reincarnation loop, that until you're enlightened, you're going to keep reincarnating. But here's the truth about all of it, is that you are already God source. Nothing exists here without God's source within it. You're already it. So you don't have to achieve being something you've always been. You don't have to achieve something to be worthy. You are worthy simply because you are and you exist. Now, yes, I know that people in your life probably don't see it that way. That's why it's your job to sit with God and remember who you really are and not give a crap what the people in your life think about you. And that can be one of the hardest things. And that's part of the appeal of this only now moment, because you can feel like if you can manage it, you can feel like, oh, well, I'm doing it now. Now I'm worthy. Right? It's like a way to give yourself worthiness when instead of finding your worth and simply being you and allowing that to be okay, you're finding your worth in a practice, which is just a sense of being lost. And it certainly isn't enlightened.
I said, I heard an interesting quote, and I don't know who it was from, whatever, but the other day, and he was a writer, and he said, you know, something, I'm going to butcher it, but basically the principle was, you know, like the reason I'm working so hard writing is because I'm trying to prove that I'm brilliant. But if I already knew that, if I had a deep knowing that I was brilliant, then there'd be no point to me to doing any writing.
Well, what do you think about that?
I feel like he's probably telling the truth from his perspective where he's at, but I don't think it's the ultimate truth. I think most brilliant things out there come from a certain level of people knowing that they're brilliant, knowing that on some level they know the truth, who they are, you know, and you see it in so many different creative works. There's these like hints that these people had this understanding of the ultimate truth. You know, you when you know what it is, you start to read these things and you start to pick them out and notice like, oh, I see what this guy's saying. Like, I think he gets it. Mm-hmm. You know, like they're alluding to the truth. They know their source, you know. So I think he's got it backwards. But what from his experience right now, that is true for him. Mm-hmm. But he's got it backwards.
Yeah, I mean, and like you said, he's speaking from his perspective, but he's guessing. He cannot say what his experience would be if he felt worthy.
That's true.
Right? Because the thing is, if he's here to be a writer, if that's actually what his blueprint is, it might just be what he's doing to learn the lesson that he's currently here to learn, which is that he's worthy, you know? But if he's actually here to be a writer, then once he feels worthy, writing is going to light him up. It's going to make him feel incredible, and he'll do it because it feels good. Now, I have a lot of days where I am guided to rest, but I will tell you what, there is no feeling on earth like being in the flow and writing. No feeling like it for me because my blueprint's writing, So it's like, I know that even if I was like, well, I don't feel the need to write anymore. I don't have to write anymore. That, 2 weeks later, I'd be writing something and it would feel really good. And I'd be like, I'm so glad I'm writing again. I can't believe I thought I shouldn't write anymore. And you can talk about how good it feels to be in the flow and writing like that. So it makes me think he's not writing from flow, because if you've ever written from flow, and flow is just this state where you are connected in with essentially with God source within you, with universal mind, and you're not writing things that you as an individual are thinking of. It's literally being deposited in your head. And
you're allowing it to flow through you.
Right. And you do this with fiction. I've done this with fiction, and of course I do it with nonfiction constantly. But yeah, it's this place where you literally get lost in the moment. And you're so in the now moment that you don't know time is going by. And when you look at the clock, you realize hours have gone by and you would have guessed it was 2 minutes, right? And once you have an experience like that, you would never again say, oh, well, that doesn't matter. And if you're curious about how to get into that flow state, I do have an incredible program called Flow from Your Soul, which is so powerful in releasing all of the writer's blocks that are so common, all the reasons energetically, mentally, physically, that we think we might not get good ideas again, that maybe I can do this right now, but I won't be able to do it. And it leads to not understanding how to put ourselves in the flow, leads to, not only writer's block, but it also leads to us thinking, oh, I better outline everything to a T because then I'll know I'll be able to finish it, instead of trusting that the universe, the genius of the universe is flowing through you. So it's not on you to make this perfect. Like the universe has got you. You'll be fine.
Yeah, I had an amazing experience with flow writing where a lot of really cool stuff came out of me. And I remember one day I sat down, I woke up at 4 a.m. to write, and I wrote till 4 o'clock in the morning the next morning, just nonstop. And it was incredible. It was like that. And I remember telling you, like, this is like the best feeling in the world. Just having something just flow through you and just keeps coming through you. It's a really incredible feeling. I'm like, if I could do anything in my life, this is what I would do. Like, I've never had such an amazing feeling like that.
Oh,
it's like,
it's incredible.
It's like when I was like at my peaks in sales, when I was selling, and it's like you're so on, like everything you do works. Like it doesn't matter who you talk to, like they just sign up because you're just so on.
Yeah.
You have these most amazing experiences with people because you're just so in the moment. That was like the best experience I've ever had at that point. Other than falling in love. When I falling with you is definitely tops. But, cause that's another in the flow moment when you're falling in love with somebody, but writing, I felt when I was writing like that, it was just flowing through me. That feeling topped being in the flow in the moment when I was selling.
Yeah.
And that was like the first thing that I've ever done, try to achieve that really topped that. It was an amazing experience. But, interesting about writers. A lot of people don't know this. Like most writers plot everything out. This is a common misconception within writing. Most people believe, and most writing teacher will teach you have to plot everything out. But the interesting thing is, some of the best writers in the world, they're pantsers. They don't plot anything. Like Stephen King. He doesn't plot for the most part. He just sits down and writes every day. He's a pantser. So is Chuck Palahniuk. I hope I said his name right, but he wrote Fight Club. And I watched an amazing interview with him where he talked about this, how he just writes from flow, and he's a pantser, and he just sits down and writes, and he says, I don't want to plot anything because it's just limiting me. And I want to discover where the story goes. And when he wrote Fight Club, interestingly, he said, I didn't know that Tyler Durden was a figment of his imagination until I wrote it down. I found out at the same point in the story everybody else did. Because I like that incredible story was just he sat down and pantsed the whole thing.
Yeah, that's absolutely incredible. And it's so true. And I talk about this a lot about how great artists, so whatever your craft is, right? Painting, dancing, writing, singing, whatever it is, great artists don't use an outline or a formula, but good ones do. Mm-hmm. Right? And it's very, very confusing to the rest of us. But I also want to mention about this being in the flow. It's literally being so in the moment. And it's when you have the ability for this creative genius to flow through you. And the reason why I say, though, creativity is not always being in the moment, because there are aspects of creativity where you need to be visualizing the future, where you need to put yourself into future moments and imagine. So maybe in the flow, you're allowing this genius work to come through you. But then you've got a pile of paper like we had for 8 years. And the only way to turn that pile of paper into something that millions of people will read and be inspired by is to be willing to move into future nows, to look at the future, to dream, to imagine. And if we are afraid of that, we'll never end up. So bringing the creation out of your mind, out of universal mind and into the physical is just step one. Getting the creation into the hands of all the people that it's meant to be in the hands of, you've got to be willing to dance about a bit in reality. You've got to be willing to play in reality. If you're sitting in your backyard on the grass, looking up at the leaves blowing in the tree all day long, you're going to miss the guidance to go to the grocery store where you meet the person that has the publishing company that puts it out there. You know, if you're not willing to follow your guidance, when your guidance tells you to do something that is not keeping you in the moment, then and there are states. It is possible to go to the grocery store and be in the moment. It is possible to meet somebody new and be in the moment. All of these things can be done in the moment and in the flow state, but it takes practice. It takes a lot of practice. And it is not, though, about emptiness. It's not about holding this emptiness. It's about being willing to do things that feel uncomfortable and that kick you out of that flow state, and being okay with that. Being okay with the fact that it's not bad or wrong that you came here to be human. Being okay with the fact that sometimes interacting with the person at the grocery store is going to cause an emotion you don't want to feel to move through your body. And you know what? You're designed to handle it. You just haven't been taught how. And learning then how to handle that. So important. Like for emotions are literally, they are an energetic, an energy that's passing through your body. And you feel it with your psychic sense of feeling, and it feels really strong and really alive. And we often then, as we've been programmed to do, identify with it. I feel mad. I feel sad. I feel. And when we say, I feel this, we start really creating a space within us where we are that. We're self-identifying as being this instead of recognizing all humans have emotions that move through them. This is not bad or wrong. It's not something to stop. Those emotions are guidance. They're letting you know if you're going in the right direction, if you're going in the wrong direction, or if there's something that you're being called to adjust. So let's say instead of saying, I feel, let's say I'm experiencing sad. I'm experiencing mad, right? And so you're experiencing it. And I like to think of an emotion as a storm that moves through. So this storm is moving through, and I'm going to experience it, and then it's going to release and move out. I don't have to worry. I'm not this. This isn't me. I'm just experiencing it. It's normal for humans to experience emotions. Nothing to be worried about, nothing to hide from, nothing even to deep breathe out of. It's simply an emotion. We have been so taught that our humanity is bad and wrong and that we should get rid of our emotions. We should always be like this even keel, kumbaya, peaceful being. But that's the exact path to just continue to ignore the emotions and never actually experience peace.
That's why a lot of these, spiritual teachers over the years, they passed away. A lot of them passed away from cancer. And, it's probably because really what they're doing is suppressing their emotions and not experiencing, not allowing them to flow through them. Like you said, like instead of saying, I'm angry, like that's who I am, say, I'm experiencing anger right now. And know that's a temporary thing. It's just going to move on and let it move through you, but
it's so important too, when we're experiencing anger, that we're not giving it to others, right? Because that doesn't discharge it. It just passes that energy to another person who will then eventually pass it back to you. So sorry for the interruption.
Okay. Yeah. But it's acknowledging that it's a temporary thing. It's not who we are. It's a temporary thing we're experiencing and it'll pass. And that's a normal human experience, but when you if you have this perception that in order to be enlightened, in order to be a good human, you have to not experience these things. Like if I experience anger, there's something wrong with me and that's bad. So I can't be the person that experienced that under any circumstances. Then what happens is when these emotions do come, because they will, because you are human, they are real. Instead of acknowledging it and allowing it to move through you, you suppress it, and that's really what a lot of these spiritual people are doing. They're suppressing it. They're not allowing themselves to ever experience these emotions, and they push it back down, and then it develops expresses itself as disease instead of just letting it move through you and knowing that's a normal process. Everybody experiences this. It's a temporary thing I'm experiencing and it'll move through you. And when you do that, a lot of times it can move through you a lot faster than you expect. Another thing I wanted to say about flow, though, we were talking to it in regards to writing, because that's what we're used to. But flow can apply to any of the arts or all kinds of things, even coders, people who write computer code can experience flow. That's where the brilliant computer code came from. Piano musicians experience flow. So it applies to all the arts. But here's the interesting thing is in order to experience flow, you have to be willing to go through the period of work. So let's say I want to experience flow playing a piano. You look at amazing, really, really good, amazing, incredible piano players. And you watch them playing the piano and you can just tell they're in flow. Like they have learned this piece and they know it by heart and they're just going to play this entire amazing piece. They don't even have sheet music in front of them. And when they're done, they're just you can tell they feel like I did it. Yeah. They feel amazing because they were experiencing flow. And that's how it came out. And it just sounded so amazing. Now, if you want to experience that and you've never played the piano before, you cannot experience that just sitting on the piano. I can go over to a piano and experience that. I would have to be willing to go through the suck. I would have to be willing to do the work to learn what I need to learn in order to have the skills so it can flow through me. If I want to be an amazing writer, I'm going to have to learn how the English language works. I'm going to have to learn punctuation. I'm going to have to learn how to type. I'm going to have to learn these things. And if I'm not willing to do the work to learn these things, then it's stifling my flow. So you have to be willing to also go through the work. And when you're doing the work, you're probably not going to be in that flow state. And you might not be in the moment. Because the first time I sit down and I look at a piece of sheet music and I'm trying to figure out how to read this thing, I'm probably not going to be in the moment. There's a lot going on. And I have to be willing to go through that and experience all that so that I can have these other amazing experiences in life.
That's what I was talking about, how there becomes a place, a state where you can be in that flow state for much of your day, but it doesn't happen right away. Right? It takes a lot of practice. And like you're saying, practice in all, whatever the skill is, learning those rudimentary parts of it, how they all fit together, and going through the periods where you feel like I'm awful at this. And like you can become a genius at anything because God will flow through you in whatever way you put your attention on things. But if you're not willing to show up and be awful for however long it takes, you're never going to get there. Oh, that reminds me of that singer. What was that singer's name? And you tell me about him. The one that I was like blown away.
Oh, what's his?
Is he like Irish or something?
He's like I can't believe I can't think of his name. He's the big one, the amazing one. The red-haired guy.
The red-haired guy.
Everybody knows who I'm talking about. Ed Sheeran.
Yeah, Ed Sheeran.
Okay. Yeah. So anyways, I saw a clip of him. It was a really interesting clip. He was on one of the talk shows. He was talking to the talk show host, and he was talking about how bad he was when he started singing. He said people say to him all the time about like, oh, well, you're really talented. You must be a natural. They assume that he's a natural singer. And he's like, no, I wasn't a natural at all. He said, actually, I was incredibly, incredibly bad at singing when I started. And talk show host was like, what? Because everybody's like, what? Like, huh? Like, right. You think you were bad. But so he's like, no, really. He pulls out his phone. He pulls out a recording. This is like one of my first like recordings. And he plays it and he's playing the guitar. And it's like, okay, well, sounds fine. It's playing the guitar. Sounds good. Then he starts singing and you're like, oh, wow. Yeah, you got a rough start, So it's like, he said, I just kept practicing until I was good. So now you would think, now this blew my mind because I already knew this, but I didn't know it applied to singing. I still thought that a singer would have to have a certain level of talent. Like if your voice sucked, there's really not much you could do about it. That's what I assumed. And he proved that wrong. So that just like blew my mind. I'm like, okay, well, I understood that, but I didn't completely understand that.
So what did you understand?
I understood that you can get good. You don't need to be naturally good at something. You can absolutely be terrible and suck at something. But if you keep doing it every day, keep practicing, you can become amazing at it. I knew that. But I didn't know that was true about singing because I still had that limiting belief. I thought, well, that applies to most things, but your voice, you can't change your voice. But he proved that you can, apparently.
Yeah.
Because he had a terrible voice, and now he has an amazing voice.
So this is why this matters, understanding this. That, okay, what this person wrote to me, empty is the goal. If our goal is emptiness, if that's where we're driving, because I say our life is like an airplane, right? And most of us are up there circling, just circling, because we don't have a destination airport in mind. We don't actually know what we want, or maybe we have an idea, but we think we can't get it. So we're not moving in the direction. We're not asking guidance. How do I get there? We're just kind of wondering what comes next. Okay. And if we're looking for emptiness, there is no emptiness airport. I guess, okay. Emptiness airport. All right. I want to go to the empty airport. Fine. Okay. So that's what you're moving in the direction of. But the only problem with that is there is no fulfillment at the emptiness airport. Because the emptiness airport is where you can hold God, but you're already God. So you can't get somewhere that you've always been. Okay. I feel very strongly about that. You can't get somewhere you've always been, somewhere you're going to be fully when you're dead again. Like you just can't get there the way that you think that you should, the way that you think will make you feel worthy. And so you're only going to go in this life the direction that you choose. Now you might take some detours. You might be guided to detours, but you got to choose it and say, I want this. I'm moving in that direction. You don't have to know how you're going to get there. That's not required at all. You actually shouldn't try to know how you're going to get there. Mm-hmm. You should let your inner guidance tell you how to get there. But you got to choose it. You got to say, you know what? I feel called to be a singer. I might be horrible, right? I might be a 1 out of 10 singer right now, but I choose I'm going to become a singer. And then you go and follow your guidance and do the practicing and you become the singer, right? But you aren't going to get there if your goal is emptiness. Just say, my goal is to create something. This is what I want to create. And you move in the direction of your goal. So I think that's why that email felt so bleak to me, because it is bleak. It's a worldview where this world isn't magic, where there's not much opportunity for us. And the best we can do is give up.
It's like pointless.
Yeah.
Saying that life is pointless. So you might as well just be in the moment and be empty and just accept everything. Mm-hmm. You know, it's like, what if Ed Sheeran had decided, well, you know, I guess my voice sucks. I can't be a singer. So I might as well just sit here and be in the moment and enjoy this, instead of sending his compass and be like, you know, I'm going to practice until I'm an amazing singer.
Yeah. And I always talk about, and I've never looked it up. I have not looked up who created the toilet. But I talk about this in all my courses. I talk about this, like Quantum Money Business Blueprint. I have a whole lesson on the toilet, because the thing is that I'm so grateful that somebody came along and created a toilet. And I believe fully that toilet creation came straight from I Am. You know, that's an incredible creation. You mean, we don't have to. My parents had a cabin, or my grandparents had a cabin in Canada when I was a little girl. And we would drive like 20 hours up to this cabin every summer for a week. And it was in the middle of nowhere on a little lake called Jack's Lake. And the cabin had been built in like the 1950s, and it did not have indoor. Well, it had a sink, but it didn't have a bathroom. So there was a little outhouse behind the cabin. And in the middle of the night, you'd have to stumble out and make your way to this little outhouse, right? And so we did that every year until, I don't know, I was 12 or 13 and my grandparents sold it. But so I have quite a few years of outhouse use for that 1 week a year. And I am so grateful that somebody invented a toilet and I don't have to do that every day of my life. So grateful. And that person who invented the toilet, I imagine that person came up against all kinds of resistance, because anyone who creates something wildly new and different comes up with all kinds of resistance. Eventually, people see them as a genius, right? After they've gone through the resistance, and you can see how incredible it is. But it's just like, you know, the first cars. People said, why would anybody need that? I have a horse. You know, same thing. Nobody got it because they already had something else. People had chamber pots. What do I need a toilet for? I have a chamber pot, you know, this is silly. I don't need that. And this is how all new creations are. They come up with resistance, and the person either has the choice to move through that resistance and hold on to the vision of the creation, or to say, oh, you're right. I guess this is unnecessary. And so many millions of people today are doing that. They have creations coming to them and they're saying, oh, I guess this is unnecessary. Yeah. You know, I'm going to give that up. I could never do that. Right. So I am so grateful for the toilet person and for everybody else who's followed their guidance and created what they felt called to create. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And I know that this is not an easy process, because following your guidance and choosing to move in the direction of creating what your soul came here to create, what your blueprint literally is for this life on earth. Okay, you change the world. You change the world simply because you're trusting. And you change the way other people think simply because you're trusting. You cause this incredible expansion because you're trusting. What I am saying is there is no creation that is not valuable. Even though you might look at, oh, well, this is a spiritual type creation, right? Maybe this is a spiritual book. So this is a valuable creation versus, well, this is just a toilet, you know? Every person on earth is here to create something slightly different, something new. And every person on earth has that specific purpose and blueprint within them to make it happen. But if they are judging their creations and saying, well, I wish my creation that wanted to come through me was more like this, then it would be valuable and worth doing. But because it's this, I don't know. I don't know if it'd be, I don't know. And my point is, and we do this to others too. And when we judge others, and this is something I've had to work through. When we judge others, it's simply a form of judging ourselves. Because we are all one. And so when we're judging someone else, it's usually because they're doing something that in some way we wish we could do, but don't know how. Right? So I have learned to say, thank you for showing me what's possible when I see something that brings up any feelings of jealousy. But if you could really know that whatever it wants to come through you could change so many people for the better, could bring so many feelings of hope and joy to the world, like Ed Sheeran, I guarantee you that when he started with his choice, I feel called to sing, I'm going to go learn how to sing. I don't know what his story is. I know nothing about him at all. I couldn't even tell you what his songs are. I can see his face, but I couldn't tell you what his songs are. If he had gone and told everybody he knew, I'm going to go be a singer, and they would have been like, oh, cool, let me hear your voice, and he sang for them, they would have laughed at him. They would have laughed at him so hard. And he had that choice to give up because it was silly and a crazy, wild idea. Or he had the choice to say, you know what, I feel like I should do this, so I'm going to do it. And trust himself. And he did. And now look at so many people are lit up by his music, feel inspired and happy, or feelings of love and joy because he's doing what he felt called to do, what he felt inside was right for him. And he did not worry about all of that, this or that. And I think it's so important, so freaking important, because we often give up before we've even started because we think we're not like those special chosen ones that are a big success. We think that couldn't be us because we can't see very much of us in them. And it's simply because, I've achieved quite a bit of success at this point. And I know there are people that feel that way when they look at me that's why I try to talk about this so much, that this was a path for me. It wasn't a snap my fingers and I'm here. It was a path of following my guidance, learning the lessons that I was here to learn and embody, and continuing to move into the direction I was guided, even when it felt hard or difficult. I just kept trusting. I just kept moving in the direction that I was guided. And I kept doing it, and I keep doing it because there is no other path. The only path that exists for me is trusting where I'm led. That's it. My path isn't about all of whatever. It's about this is where I'm led, so I'm led. We just got a comment on our audiobook on YouTube. And it was an interesting comment. And there were, I think, 2 of them from the same person right next to each other. And she's like, oh, I figured it out at whatever. She had a timestamp there from the video. She's like, Phil's not even real. Where is he here in the book? I figured it out. Phil's not real. And she's like, I'm like, well, I guess you haven't seen the podcast. But then I was like, well, I guess she could go and say, maybe you're an actor. You could be a hired actor, right? I don't know. Who knows? So she figured it out. Phil's not real. And then she figured it out. She's like, you're trying to make me believe that you were laying down in a trance-like state, and this Phil person who's imaginary was asking you questions and you were answering in a trance. And she's like, only a fool would believe that. And I'm like, okay, well, yes, that's what we were doing. So she goes on then to say in her next comment, and so she's being triggered by this, and she's listening to it, and she's being triggered. So she's trying to deal with the uncomfortable feelings where her current worldview is being sort of shattered, right? Which happens when we are exposed to the truth and we're not totally closed off. So she's actually open to it, and she's trying to deal with those uncomfortable feelings and she's trying to find an excuse. She's trying to find like holes in our story to try to prove it false so she doesn't have to go through those uncomfortable emotions of spiritual awakening. Right? Because it's spiritual awakening, when you find out everything around you is an illusion, it's very painful.
It's a painful thing to find out the truth about the world.
Yeah. So
sometimes it's hard to deal with.
Oh, yeah.
It takes a lot of strength to move through these realities and accept the truth about what's going on in the world. And it's hard.
Yeah. So anyway, she went on to say, then she figured it out again. She kept figuring it out and leaving comments. She's figuring it out, all the ways we're frauds, right? And so then she figures out, oh, you're just doing this to get money. You just want money. And I'm like, oh, and I get there are people that see me and they believe that, right? And there's people that see other people and believe that. And the thing is that when you're on your soul's mission, you are led to the money that you need to continue to move forward. Like that is part of what happens. But when I look at my goals, like where I'm driving the airplane of my life, it's not like I'm driving the airplane of my life to, however much money. Do I know more and more money is always flowing to me? Yes, 1,000%. But that's not what drives me. What drives me is my soul's mission. So it just kind of makes me laugh when people think what drives me is the money, right? It's like the money is an awesome thing that just happens. And the other thing is I couldn't keep going without the money. If I had to go back to being a nurse and you had to go back to being a nurse full time, there would not be space for a podcast. There would not be space for the weekly guidance newsletter. There would not be space for all the social media. Everything would stop. There would not be space to hold for me to read. There would just be no space because everything would go back to, okay, I work full time. Any time that I'm not working is for my children and eating and showering and sleeping, there are reasons that money comes to you when you're following your path. It's so that you can continue. But the money also isn't going to come to you in that way if that's what your path is about, because you're going to have to learn that lesson. Like, it's so important that we understand that as we each uniquely follow our blueprints and our inner guidance that's leading us in the direction of that blueprint, that we are being of assistance to others. We are being of assistance to other souls on their path. And that this is such a blessing, which is why I always have gratitude for whoever created the toilet, because they were such an assistance to me on my path. Thank you very much. All of indoor plumbing, incredible. All of the modern technology we have, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And when you follow, so many people are coming from that lack worldview where if somebody is going out and creating something in the world, they're doing it purely because they want to get, and the further along you move on your path, the more it becomes, and there's nothing wrong with being there in the beginning, right? But the further along you move on your path, the more it becomes about, I'm doing this because this is pouring forth from me, because I am called to do it, because there's nothing else that I can do but do this. It's do this or die. This is who I am. It's what I am. There is nothing else here except allowing this to pour out of me. That is it. That's enough. That's really cool. And I know that when I go too long without pouring forth what wants to come through me, I start feeling blocked and feeling like this doesn't feel good. I feel stifled and start to feel not alive, start to feel kind of like a pile of mush. And it reminds me of how I used to feel before we published our book, like every day. I just felt like I was going through the motions. I didn't feel alive. Following my guidance and going down this path has given me my life back, has given me a life that I didn't know was possible to live.
Just about the toilets. I read, some time ago, I read the book, The Picture of Dorian Gray.
Oh, yeah.
Which I wasn't a big fan of, but in the book, the character buys a porcelain toilet and he's kind of like made fun of it. Like, what are you wasting money on that for? So I don't know when that book was, like late 1800s, I think.
Yeah,
something.
Yeah, probably.
So, it was reviewed as like, what is that? Like, why are you buying that? Yeah. You know? And I saw a short documentary about, it was the guy who invented popsicles. Apparently, popsicles haven't been around that long. As long as
I would have thought they were like 100 years.
Yeah, I would have thought they were like hundreds of years old. Like, you know, like oh, maybe, the Egyptians were making popsicles. So like, but apparently it wasn't that long ago. Like I think he's still alive. But he came up with popsicles, and people didn't get it. They thought it was stupid. They're like, what is this? They're like, why would you, like, who's going to want to buy that? Like, the people he knew didn't think it was a good idea. They thought it was stupid. Like, he got a lot of resistance, but he thought this was a good idea, and he kept at it. And now, who hasn't eaten a popsicle? Like, it's just like a normal thing. But it wasn't that long ago. Nobody had heard of one. It didn't exist. And people thought it was a stupid idea.
I would think you would be incredibly hard pressed to find a story about someone who created something new that did not come with, this was difficult. Nobody thought this was a good idea. I did it anyway. I'm glad I did.
Like computers, they thought like there was only they weren't very useful. Like some companies will use them, but nothing beyond that. Yeah. They didn't. And who was it? Steve Jobs thought was Steve Jobs, or was it?
I think it was
Bill Gates, or both of them, whatever.
I don't know.
Somebody had the idea like, hey, I think everybody in the world will have one of these in their home. And people thought that was ridiculous. Like, people don't have a use for this in their home.
Yeah.
Like, now think about, look, who doesn't have a computer? Mm-hmm. We walk around with them in our pockets now. I saw a thing about the guy who invented the trampoline. Like, people thought it was a silly thing. They thought it was silly. Like, who doesn't want a trampoline?
We've been having so much fun. We have a trampoline now. We've had one for about a month, and it's really incredible. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for the We Are All God podcast, with new episodes dropping every Sunday morning. And remember, you are more powerful than you've ever imagined.